Hi everyone, I'm Lisa O'Malley in South Australia, co-founder of the Carer Project. The Carer Project is a volunteer-led advocacy and peer support initiative committed to improving outcomes for vulnerable children and the carers who support them. Today we're going to talk a little bit about NDIS and the challenges that carers in particular face in trying to establish plans for the children in their care.
Hi, I'm Leah. I'm a foster carer, and I care for my caring role has been with children with complex medical disability needs. I have experienced NDIS planning and some of the challenges that I face as a carer in regards to NDIS and participants.
Hi, I am Kelly, also from South Australia. I am a kinship carer, and I have had dealings with NDIS for a long time now with various participants, and also have lots of friends who also have to access the NDIS and the issues that they face that come along with it.
So we've all been hearing from others in the community, and particularly foster and kinship carers, and about the I guess the struggles that they're all having establishing plans and timely plans. We're seeing more and more feedback and receiving more messages and calls from carers asking for help in regards to NDIS. So what we did first off was we conducted a poll on the Carer Project Facebook page. And then from that poll, we established some of the key issues which were consistently being raised by carers in South Australia in particular. So perhaps if I start with perhaps those top key issues, and then we can delve into those a little bit more and talk about some of the things that carers are talking about and perhaps some of the possible solutions for those problems. So we have to start with inadequate involvement of carers in the NDIS process, poor plan design and administrative failures, access barriers and funding cuts, denial of critical services and equipment, financial and emotional toll on carers, misuse and depletion of participant funds, accountability and oversight failures. And then we want to talk a little bit about trauma-informed services and some of the solutions that we put together in the report. And this report we have provided to various ministers in South Australia and also at a federal level. So I guess if we go back to the first point being inadequate involvement of carers in NDIS processes, and I would say that that would be one of the key frustrations from carers who are caring for children 24/7. And we always say carers are the experts in the children's lives because they have them 24/7 and they're closest to the child. So the frustration building with carers who are caring for these children, but they're not at the table and not being CC'd into emails and part of the conversations in trying to establish plans. And then, of course, what happens with those plans and funding following them being excluded.
Yeah, I can speak to that, Lisa. Thank you. Great topics here, by the way, in regards to NDIS, and every one of them I can speak to. So inadequate involvement of carers in NDIS planning processes. That is one of the, I guess, one of the top things that I've challenged with. Um, you have your small person or your person, your participant, the child, and they either come with a plan or don't come with a plan, or sometimes you're part of developing a plan. When a carer or a person it's removed from that role of identifying the needs of the child, and it talks about setting the goals, setting the needs of the child, identifying key areas, removing or not having included the key person or the person who knows that child best. No, look, that doesn't matter if it's been for a week, it doesn't matter if it's been for 2 or 3 years. It's what you know best at that time and the needs for the child at that time. Disadvantages the child, but it also disadvantages of service providers and everyone else around them trying to get those supports in place. I've been challenged with that often. And yeah, it is, as we know, a 24/7 care role. So yeah, setting goals, meeting the needs of the children, and developing a NDIS plan, or improving an NDIS plan, and not having the expert in the room is can be a great disadvantage to the participant. Yeah, I don't know, does anyone else have any feedback on that?
I would thank you, Leah, for that. And I agree, that is a great question, Lisa. I guess not having your carer at the table, I can speak to that as well and say carers are the ones that have the lived experience with these children. We know what is needed. And I guess with us not being there sort of delays the process of an even longer, sometimes, 6 to 7 months that we're waiting, for maybe equipment or for reports or something like that, where because there's, toing and froing, or yes, we are being excluded from, from the process, I guess. So at the end of the day, the participants are the ones that are sort of missing out, aren't they, when they should be at the forefront of it.
I would think too. There's as well, Kelly. It's the things that they don't need. Sometimes a participant will have a plan that has funding in there that it could be a large amount of funding, but it's inaccessible or unattainable. But the plan does look healthy. It looks healthy financially, but those funds that are in there are not aligned with the participants' needs, goals, or maybe that things have changed significantly so that you can't access those funds. And there's another area I think that needs to be addressed by the carer or the person, in that role.
Absolutely, yeah.
The three key issues identified were, again, the carers, the 24/7 experts in the child's life, are often excluded from NDIS planning, reviews, and communications. So not even included in email conversations. NDIS planners, DCP workers, and support coordinators frequently prepare plans without carer input, leading to inaccurate information and inadequate funding. Carers are often not informed whether a child has an NDIS plan when the child enters their care, or what services have been allocated, or even when appointments and reviews are about to occur. I'm also hearing from carers that are hearing back that there is really obvious inaccurate information in the plans. Some plans will identify perhaps a diagnosis or disability that the child doesn't even have, or they'll perhaps mix up and have another child's information, perhaps another child's diagnosis or information in their plan. And I think, like you said, Leah, nothing's timely, and you, Kelly, it takes months for somebody to come back, and often carers find out that even after the planning meeting, the conversations are still occurring after that meeting, and the inaccurate information is still being shared. And it's always a given that because the carer is not the guardian, that the carers, they don't understand that it's actually the carer that has the accurate information for that child. And then the carer, particularly combined with the service providers, are the key in getting, I guess, thorough and accurate plans for the children.
And like Leah brought up a really good point before too, about, you've got this a bucket of money where these people are sitting around making decisions about how it should be spent, whereas some of that money can't be accessed because it's in a pool of what doesn't fall under what that person actually needs it for. So it's just money sitting there that could be, like it could be money for, I don't know, something that you might need for therapy, or it's frustrating.
Also,
as
too,
we know from the report.
Yeah, agree, Lisa and Kelly. There's also the when you're engaging with service coordinators, you know, you might seek a new service coordinator. Service coordinator asks you, do you have funding for that? How are you supposed to answer those questions if you don't have access to a plan?
Yeah.
How are you supposed to meet the needs of the participant if you're unable to read the goals or the needs of the child participant of the NDIS plan? So that is another.
I've spoken to like lots of carers who are dealing with the NDIS, and you know, we have the app on our phone and we go view and it says limited access. Why do carers have limited access? It's like giving someone half the story and expecting them to still be able to do it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know carers who have kind of scrimped and saved their way through the child's plan, being led to believe that there's not much funding in there, and they've also I guess funded items out of their own pocket, worried that they're going to exhaust funding and maybe therapy might be stopped, or some other equipment might be stopped, and then they've got to the end of the plan, and perhaps the DCP worker has said to them, there's all this money left in the plan, you need to hurry up and spend it, otherwise we might not get it next time. So the carer has delved into their own pocket, been financially disadvantaged, purchasing these items for the children because they've been under pressure to be careful with the plan, but then found out at the end of the line that there's a pool of money that they're then being told to use up so that they can apply and get another good bundle of funding for the next plan. It just seems, and also hearing from carers that children are going to therapies and then the funding might run out via NDIS. So the department is cutting off therapies for children. That's what carers are telling me. Oh, well, you can't go to therapy because you have to wait until we get the new plan and we get further funding. You can't stop treatment for children. They regress, and then you've got to try and catch up again. And these kids need consistency in everything, and even in equipment. They need their equipment, whether it be things like strollers and wheelchairs and things. You can't just say to the child, sorry, you're going to have to go without because your NGO's funds run out and we're not going to buy it for you. That's the common story that I'm hearing from carers.
I'm hearing similar, Lisa. Carers, you know, talking about NDIS planning. So you talk about the funding of the NDIS plan, then you talk about what is the model of the plan, which is obviously the goals and needs of the child. What has happened between the plan being developed? When was that developed? I guess, you know, designed. What time has elapsed? What are the needs of the child now? Sometimes there's significant change. There could be a significant change in the child's needs. So like, let's just say, for example, a child needs a hoist. Now that's not inside the plan, but it's an immediate need. How are carers, or, you know, supposed to navigate those items as quickly, immediately, with service providers? It doesn't happen.
Yeah. And I think it can be, and I think sometimes
part of the conversation.
Yeah, and sometimes carers are finding that the DCP staff aren't trained well to deal with the NDIS processes. So we know how much work the DCP workers have to do every day, and then to have NDIS layer across the top of that as well. I mean, but again, one of the biggest solutions would be that is a load that the carers can share, because that information to us comes naturally. We know that information. We don't have to think of it. We know it. We live it. That would be one way to not pass on the responsibility from DCP, but to reduce some of the workload, because we're the ones that can get the the accurate reports done with the service providers. We can give the accurate information at the planning meetings. you know, there's a role, I think, for each of us in that. And then if we work as a team, the kids shouldn't have so many plans expiring or running out of funding, and then the kids being caught short. So that kind of rolls on to the next topic, which was poor plan design and administrative failures. So some of that's, I think some of that we've already mentioned. And the three key issues or points that the carers raised were outdated plans are routinely rolled over, failing to reflect a child's age, development, or evolving needs. When reassessments are finally conducted, previous reports are void, requiring expensive reassessments, wasting precious participants' funds. Many plans don't meet the child's goals or needs, leaving service providers unable to deliver appropriate support. And I think that's an important point, is that when the information becomes outdated and the children still haven't established an up-to-date plan, all that outdated information has to be sourced again. And all of those people have to be paid again to provide that information. That's thousands of dollars out of kids' plans every year. And when you add up, and I know we're sort of focusing more on the kids in care, so even just the kids in out-of-home care, that would be a massive amount of taxpayers' money being wasted on having to source updated reports because the planning and the job hadn't been done in a timely way.
Yeah.
Surely we can save money by doing that better.
Also, too, I think it's really important to mention, like, an NDIS plan doesn't give access to the carer for the funding. That's not how it works. You don't get a pool of money to, you know, you don't get to buy that pink unicorn or whatever. It's not managed like that. It's managed by a plan, you know, like what do they call them?
Plan manager.
Plan manager, yeah, a plan manager. So the money is actually not attainable. You don't get to have the money.
No.
You don't even get to manage the money, because that money is actually managed by a plan manager. So I think it's a really important thing when we're talking about NDIS, is for, I guess, some of the people who don't understand what it is when you're talking about NDIS plan and NDIS funding. It's not put into your bank account where you get to spend it. It's not like that at all. It's held by a plan manager. It's very sensibly managed. It's almost like through an accountant. So you know, the invoices are submitted, they're approved and paid. And that's how the process works. So we're not giving carers money.
Yeah.
We're not giving
And if the money being spent or the equipment being purchased has to align with their goals.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just go and spend it on something because the child wants it or the carer wants it for the child.
And I have heard from carers too that have come back that equipment that does align with goals is being rejected and said no to. And as a carer, these people can't argue it because we don't have a voice in there. So workers come back and say, look, you know, they've said no, and then it's okay. Well, then this child is still here without this equipment that they need, which, you know, therapists have written reports, several reports. And again, Lisa, back to it's coming out of the funding. It doesn't just come out of a bucket of money from somewhere. It comes out of that child's funding.
You're correct there. You are correct there, Kelly. When you're saying about service providers, so a carer not being included or in the participant's plan means that you don't get to have those conversations with the service provider firsthand either. They then go back to perhaps maybe a social worker or a worker and expect to get, I guess, you know, information and better outcomes for the child, because you can't speak to us. We can't be spoken to. We're not a direct line of contact or communication. And it really does let the participant down.
And it just comes back to, you know, if carers are included and work collaboratively, it's a far better outcome for the participant, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, the next one was access barriers and funding cuts. So travel funding reductions significantly affect accessibility for participants and children who cannot tolerate hospital or busy public settings due to perhaps ASD, ADHD or other conditions. Rural and regional participants will be further disadvantaged by the reduction in funding, critically impacting the availability of therapy and services in communities in very real need of sustainable support. Providers have increased the cost of services upon learning a child has an NDIS plan, depleting funding faster and reducing service hours. Some providers have indicated they'll no longer support children with complex needs due to reduced funding and administrative complexities.
I can speak to that one. I spoke to a carer last week who now has to travel with their child from Port Augusta to down to the Barossa, because the allied, like the therapist, cannot travel up there anymore because of funding cuts to travel. So that's a participant that is now traveling, doing a 4-hour trip, 8-hour round trip for a 45-minute therapy session.
With a child with additional needs.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
what kind of, you have to wonder what kind of benefit is that child with additional needs going to get from 45 minutes of therapy when they're spending so many hours traveling and they're going to be exhausted?
So 7 hours traveling, 45 minutes for a therapy appointment, all because the therapist that used to travel cannot do it. And at the end of the day, these people are running businesses, so you can't even hold that against them. But it's the participant that's suffering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm having service providers as well. I've heard similar stories about service providers saying, I need to be mindful of the travel costs or how often I can come out and meet with you or meet with the participant to discuss planning. It not just only is about the therapy supports, it's about being at home doing assessments for the plan, trials for equipment, those kind of things. Like, it is a huge impact. Cutting the funding for travel for people.
Yeah, I'm hearing that carers are finding, like you said, you need to make yourself available to be home for those types of assessments or to get the child elsewhere for assessments. And for carers who have already given up so much and bearing such a financial burden for the children that they're raising, and many saying that they've had to give up their employment totally or reduce their hours, then to have to find extra time to be available with the child to have these assessments done or to travel to these venues, it's just getting harder and harder for carers. There's more burden on carers, but they don't have a voice, they don't have a say in most cases. The next points raised from carers were under the denial of critical services and equipment. They're saying that children have been denied essential items such as access ramps home, bathroom modifications, vehicle modifications, vehicles, sensory and communication tools, wheelchairs and medical grade safety beds. These denials impact safety, education access, and social and community inclusion. I'm hearing from quite a few carers that they are having equipment denied or waiting months, if not years, for equipment to be provided. And again, it's not the carer that is waiting for the equipment. It's the child who's left without the equipment that they need, be it medical, disability, safety. And people seem to have lost sight of the child who is at the centre of everything and left waiting for this equipment for such a long time.
Yeah, I'm hearing similar things, and I have had these experiences too, being requesting certain equipment, whether it be a safety ramp, whether it be wheelchairs, whether it be minor things or major items for participants. You are left then to improvise. Never a good idea to improvise for a child with specific needs. I understand some of these items are big ticket items, vehicle modifications, home modifications. They're a great cost, but in a lot of ways, when you have recommendations and have assessments done, have quotes put forward, and then I'm hearing that because of the delay, those quotes and those recommendations then become outdated again, need to be done again. then there's another delay. So it just keeps snowballing, that delay, that it's not a delay because you're delayed because you're waiting for the works to begin. It's more a delay because you're working towards getting to the end goal, which is to get the builder into the home, to get that car modification done. There's huge delays.
And in the meantime, if a child is without a safety, a safe way, a safe means for them to travel, so perhaps the cars aren't safe for them and not modified to fit their perhaps physical disabilities, or the home isn't fitted out with the appropriate ramps, and something happens and that child falls, hurts themselves, or has a car accident and isn't protected, you got to wonder who is going to be the one that's legally liable because that child didn't have the safety equipment that they should have had at the time.
I agree, Lisa. Also, too, the impact on the carer. Like, let's look at the carer or the person's caring, physical, risk as well. Lifting, managing, supporting a person or participant who has disabilities, and that's not easy. When you're talking about some participants, maybe 12, 15, and some of them are, of size and difficult to handle and manage. You're putting carers at risk. You're putting people who are in this role at risk.
And I guess when you look at nursing homes and hospitals, they all have work health safety laws and equipment to help them lift and do all of those things that volunteer carers are doing without any of those things, and often with the children not even having the safety equipment that they need. And we also need to remember that a lot of our carers now have been carers for a long time. They're all getting older too. We have a lot of female carers who are caring for, even 10 years plus. Some of those boys are quite big compared to the aging female carer. And for them to have to physically manage and lift without any type of support and assistance isn't good for the carer or the child. It puts both of them at risk.
It's a really good point. Like Lisa, we don't have nurses lifting. There's practices and policies that they have to follow to lift their patients. And you're right, like majority of carers are getting older, so it's putting them at risk when it shouldn't be happening.
And then and again, now you're talking about a carer who has a role to care for children with disabilities. When that carer is taken out of that role, what then happens? A carer's done a back or whatever that injury might look like. What then? The participant now is left without their primary carer. No NDIS plan or funding is going to cover that.
No, and there's not usually a large amount of support forthcoming from anywhere for a carer.
Yeah.
If anything happens and they're unable to provide like physical care for a child, it's they're usually rummaging and trying to find somebody within our own carer community who's already volunteering for children to kind of step up. The support has to increase absolutely for carers. We've been saying it for years, and I think the care needs of children, they're not lessening any. In many cases, I think they're increasing, and that there's more and more burden on carers constantly. So I guess the next point raised by carers was the financial and emotional toll on carers. Carers are constantly out of pocket, and their employment is often impacted due to the need to chase DCP, NDIS, and service providers to fix errors. Carers are left feeling helpless, distressed, and frustrated, often blamed for the unmet needs that are due to systemic failure and not their failure to meet the needs of children. And I think that's important because quite often out in public, foster carers, kinship carers are out in public. And if a member of the public or someone that works in the system or the health system, and they see the carers out with the children and they've got equipment that they've outgrown or they don't have something they should have or need, carers can be really unfairly judged. And I think that brings that whole level of shame in for carers and helplessness, because it's out of their control anyway. They've been financially burdened and out of pocket. We spoke a little bit about that before, on the employment that being impacted. Foster and kinship carers are the only people in the sector or in the community that work caring for these children that aren't paid. And again, they're the only volunteers in society who bear the financial burden for people they provide care for. And that, for the carers that did complete the poll on the Carer Project page, and then those that make contact with me, that financial burden for some is making it impossible for them to continue caring for children. And we can't afford to lose the carers that we have.
I'm also hearing, Lisa, a lot of carers talking about that the social toll it takes on them as a carer, being able to socially interact and be around their families, even, whether it be their immediate family or extended family or friends. That is a huge, I guess, gap, a misunderstanding of what it is to be a foster carer, especially when foster carers are carers are caring for children with significant disabilities and complex needs. Yeah.
It is isolating. It's
Yeah.
very isolating.
Yeah.
Well,
and there's not
we're just go on, Leah.
no, and I said not only is it isolating, it's isolating. There is no like, where do we go to connect? We have to make those connections together. It's not like they want to bring us together and say, here's an NDIS forum. I don't know. I'm hearing a lot of carers coming and saying, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. Where do I find the support? Where do I get the help? I feel like it's a fight. It's a constant battle. I'm exhausted. I'm time poor. Meeting the needs of the child is actually easier than struggling and fighting the systems.
Yeah, I know some carers who care for multiple children with high needs and medical and disability. And some of those people haven't had a night out in years, because who is going to provide care for those children? There's no, we don't have an organisation, specifically trained to care for children with high medical and disability needs that carers can access, so that they can actually have some respite and go out for a night, even if it can't be for a weekend. There's no agency that will come in and provide that respite for those carers, so that they know that the child's safe and they can go out for a few hours or for the night and have some time out. But every time a carer does an annual review, I'm pretty sure they're asked about, what do you do for self-care? What is the carer supposed to say to that, when there are no options for them to actually take time away from those children and take some self-care time? There's no support provided.
No, there's nothing, absolutely nothing. You're dead right.
You can't leave these children with just anybody.
No.
And likewise for the other children that don't have the physical, perhaps, and medical disabilities, but even the children with other diagnoses and autism and ADHD, and if you've got several kids in your care and you need them, you want a night out, and you're supposed to find a babysitter. How do you find those people that are trained and able to care for, say, 3 children with all of those diagnoses, so that you can go off for a night out? There's not too many people that can do that.
Well, not voluntarily. I mean, they are experts in their field of care, so they're highly sought after. They're in demand. They're already out there. It is their job. So if you're expecting them to come because carers don't get that funding and that support, you're expecting them to come to your home and support and care for a child with complex needs, whatever they might be, you know, you're going to have to offer them something more than a cup of tea. It hasn't worked. It's not working. I'm hearing the same thing: exhaustion, fatigue, you know, burnt out. These are the words I'm hearing from other carers. And you can see it. It's very clear. It's very evident.
Yeah, I've had carers who have been carers for quite some time call me in tears because they've perhaps got a placement that's ending soon, and the child has had complex needs. They're exhausted caring for the child, but they're just absolutely exhausted at trying to work with systems that seem more, I guess, designed to look at how can we get away with not providing this support, as opposed to, okay, how can we make this happen? And until we change the attitude around so that we look at every family and the dynamics of the children that are in the home, and we look at it differently, and we start to say, how best can we support this family? We're going to have children moving around from placement to placement, and we're going to have carers walking away, and it's going to get harder and harder to recruit new carers. And then right at the center of all of that, who are the people that really miss out? The kids. Because I always say, kids get one chance at childhood. We can't get the year back that the system blew, and where the child went without, and the child went without their support or their equipment, and the child didn't go to school for the most of the year or had so many days off of school. The kids don't get to go back and redo life. So we have one chance to get it right for these kids. And at the moment, for a lot of kids, I'd say it's not happening. It's just not, they're not getting it right. And the next point carers raised was misuse and depletion of participant funds. They say that DCP are often engaging with providers, or there are charges for services to participants' plan without necessity or without consultation, rapidly exhausting funds. So I guess there'll be those ongoing conversations that perhaps you were talking about earlier, and sourcing accurate information because the carer wasn't at the table for the decision making. And it says that there's no accountability. No accountability exists when a child's plan is depleted and services are put on hold pending yet another review, so the child goes without services.
I can speak to that, Lisa. Obviously, children with complex plans, there's a multi-layers. There's multi-layers inside the plan. Then you come away from the plan and you come into the home where the participant is. There's usually multiple service providers, medical specialists, therapists, play therapists, educational. It's enormous. You know, there could be 20 providers in that participant's domain of support, and it is a huge ask of a worker to manage those when they are not on the ground implementing, having first-hand conversations. And that is when the plan starts to become a little more fractured. There's more conversations than there is therapies happening for that child. And the plan gets depleted. Reports, requesting information, phone calls, emails, whatever really comes of those. Not much for the participant. So yeah, depletion of NDIS planning, especially if a carer is aware of the plan, knows of the plan, is trying to save, budget, unbeknownst to them, these conversations are happening and funds are being depleted. Some service providers can charge up to $196 an hour. You know, it doesn't take much for a few conversations, few emails, and a report to be written for that money to be quickly depleted without the participant knowing, without the carer who's managing the plan, the funding, known. Yeah, it is a big problem. I'm hearing that it is a big problem.
And then, like the carers have said here, and the next topic also is accountability and oversight failures. So false information leads to children being denied NDIS access. And I know I experienced that myself many years ago when a worker was directed to put together NDIS plans for a child in my care, and the worker was told to have me at the table and to include me. I kept following up to find out when were we going to do this, only to then find out that the worker went and did it without me, despite, I guess, being directed by senior staff, and the child was denied NDIS access. So for years, that child went without the NDIS funding and support, and there was a fight to get support and services for the child. So also, carers say that the DCP workers they've had have lacked adequate training to support or facilitate NDIS processes and showed little understanding of complex disability needs. And I think probably in a lot of cases that's true, but I don't know that that's even fair for the DCP workers, because, you know, do we expect them just to be automatically trained in understanding a wide variety of complex medical and disability needs? And then also, as we all know, the NDIS processes are another layer added on top of the case management. And, you know, I've suggested to the seniors, to leaders in the department and also ministers, that the department should have a specialist team that deals with, in particular, the complex medical, the disability and palliative care children, so that at least for those children, somehow we can create a well-trained and bring in some, I guess, medically trained or some people with experience in the medical and disability care sector, so that they come into the specific team with access to well-trained NDIS workers, so that we start to actually get those highly complex needs kids with really good plans, really good support, which will then also support the carer to support that placement.
Yeah.
But we're yet to see that happen, but we keep suggesting it. So back to the accountability and oversight. Carers are saying that they're also frequently charged no-shows for appointments that they weren't even informed about. That depletes the funding for the kids' plan. There's no independent oversight of DCP's handling of NDIS plans or funding use. The NDIS complaints process is ineffective, prioritising resolution over accountability or child safety. Service providers are rarely held accountable for fraud, misconduct, or placing participants at risk. And that was quite a common theme in even in messages and phone calls that I get from carers asking where can they go for help in regards to their NDIS plans, and where can they go to lodge complaints. They just find, whilst caring for children with complex needs and then trying to navigate those online complaints processes, and of course we don't have an independent oversight body in South Australia to help, I guess, address carers' complaints either. So that was a really common theme in, I guess, the contact that I'm getting from carers too.
Well, yeah, there's nowhere to independently go anywhere.
No, and you know, a resolution is different to a, you know, I guess their actions and consequences. Actions and consequences can be very, very helpful, you know, to act in a different way than what you did before. And the consequences might be something like, you know, further training, a deeper understanding, you know, maybe moving that person out. Perhaps they're not the person for that position. Maybe they have, like you said, haven't had adequate training. But I think having nowhere to go but back to the system that has failed for complaints is not working. It isn't working. I'm hearing the
Boils
same
down
thing.
to if they don't have the training behind them, and lots of them don't, because they don't have the understanding that we have around these children.
Also, there's another point of it too, Lisa, when you talk about making complaints. A lot of carers are saying, a child with complex needs comes into their care, they have an NDIS plan. Where's the support and training for the carer? Like, NDIS is another language. It is a completely different world. Like, they talk about, S100s and, all these different languages. The language. It's a system of its own. And, that hasn't, I've not found anyone that said, I've got a fancy, I've been given an avenue to be educated. I'm going off to NDIS training, or I'm being supported by a support coordinator. I don't know. It seems you're left fumbling around, and when things go wrong, you get to complain. But, what is the outcome of that?
Yeah, I've suggested for many years that DCP, NGO and carers attend training together. And I think NDIS would be one of those things that would be really useful if we were all in the room. Obviously, we can't all do it at the same time, but start bringing through groups so that we have workers from both NGOs and DCP, and also foster and kinship carers, and start bringing them into the room together so that we're all learning the same thing. It brings accountability, but it also means that if we're all hearing the same thing, if one of us is slightly unsure about something, odds are the other one's going to know what is the answer. And then that's how we actually have a care team working together. We all learn the same. We all have a good opportunity to understand and know the same, but we also get to support each other.
And who benefits at the end of the day from that?
Yeah, again, it's the kids, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. That child-centered focus again. Come together, support each other, to provide for the children.
Yeah. So then the next point was, carers also mentioned that often service providers aren't trauma informed. Their first points were children and young people in care experience varying levels of trauma, including PTSD, developmental trauma, complex trauma, each presenting with its own unique signs, symptoms, and behaviours. These behaviours often overlap with or mimic those associated with, for example, ASD, ADHD, and other disabilities, yet trauma-related mental health injuries are not consistently recognised or funded under NDIS. We've argued that for so long. You can have the same similar behaviours if you've got ASD as what you may have if you've got PTSD. So why do we cover and support the diagnosis over here and the needs over here, but the behaviours are the same over here, but we won't support those? I think it's time that they started, definitely, I know we've got changes that are just coming through in NDIS now, and a lot of people and carers, providers, other people in the community are complaining about it. I think it's a good time to actually press pause, revisit those changes, and also look at incorporating PTSD trauma support into NDIS. You would think it would just be common sense. It shouldn't be about the diagnosis, it should be about the needs, I think.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you, Lisa. That's a good, good topic to bring up.
Yeah. So carers were, there were plenty of comments going up in the carer page and in messages, and people contacting me, having conversations. So we were talking about what would we like to see, what would we urge, I guess, NDIS to think about doing. Some of those things were an immediate review and reconsideration of the July 1st NDIS changes. Mandatory involvement of carers in all planning and review processes. Direct communication and information sharing with carers regarding the child's plans, services and appointments. Independent oversight of DCP's NDIS involvement and an independent NDIS complaints and investigation process. Policies to prevent service providers from inflating fees upon learning of NDIS funding. Targeted consultation with foster and kinship carers direct to design a system that meets the real needs of vulnerable children. The NDIS must broaden its scope to recognise trauma as a legitimate cause of disability, ensuring access to appropriate therapeutic services, supports and equipment for children affected by trauma in out-of-home care. Children in care are already some of the most disadvantaged in our community. The current NDIS structure is failing them and failing those who care for them. These changes are compounding trauma and stripping children of their right to timely, appropriate support. So we urge them to take this matter forward and help deliver a system where children's needs are prioritised and that carers are respected, and also that public funds are used responsibly. Because let's remember, all of this money is coming from the people who are out there working hard, paying taxes. So there has to be an obligation to taxpayers that they're going to, I guess, be more wise and be more wary of how they're spending taxpayers' money, because it's not their money, it's taxpayers' money. And I think taxpayers also need to start paying a bit more attention as to how departments are spending their money and what is the outcome. Where's the money going? And are we seeing the outcomes in the children or the other vulnerable people in the community that are meant to be getting the support?
Yeah.
Lisa, you mentioned in the beginning that you had supplied that report to various South Australian ministers. Did you get any responses from any ministers in regards to the report from the Carer Project and the carers' voices?
I heard from two who told me it was it falls under the Minister for Child Protection's portfolio, and they sent it to her. And I've not heard from anybody else. And so far, the Minister for Child Protection has not engaged with me and discussed it with me.
I've heard, I can speak about, you know, some of the, I guess, you know, the advocacy or the request for support from ministers, ministers of disability, ministers of NDIS. I'm also hearing from carers, they've reached out, and because the children are under the guardianship, that it reverts back to the Minister for Child Protection, even though she doesn't hold that portfolio. So I think that is another part of the problem we have here, is the child may fall under a disability minister or under a health minister or under education minister, but because they're under the umbrella of child protection, back it goes to Minister Katrine.
And they're not having any oversight, independent oversight or independent advocacy. Carers are complaining that they have nowhere to go because they're running around in circles, and in the meantime these kids are all waiting for outcomes.
And you're having carers with carer burnout because they're having to fight a system that
you can't win.
No, yeah.
No, like it's a circle, the cycle, it's there's just no exit point.
Like the hamster on the wheel, isn't it? It just continues to run and run and run and run around.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and that your time can be better spent on the ground doing what it is you need, because you should have the supports in place. They do have the NDIS plan. You should be able to implement the things that they need at that time in a timely way, in a very timely way, rather than have on delays and then outdated plans and equipment that are no longer meets the needs of the children. It is a more of a, like I said before, I think it becomes more of a fight about the systems than it does about fighting and helping and supporting the needs of the children.
You know, we used to hear about, you know, children, I guess, coming into out-of-home care and the need for their needs to be prioritised, because the quickest intervention they get, the quickest the healing process begins for them. And there was all this talk of rapid response, you know, quicker access to medical intervention or disability intervention, or it might be dental. How is it rapid response if we have children waiting for disability equipment for a month, for 3 months, for a year, for 2 years, for 3 years? How is that rapid response? And really, would anybody working in the sector treat their own children the same way?
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot too, Lisa. Same sort of things. Children who have needs for walkers, or there's a thing called a Riften walker. I've had a carer come to me and said, "How do I get that? How do we get in a Riften walker? This child can't walk." I don't know if they have an NDIS plan. I don't know if it's in the NDIS plan. I don't even know how to engage with service providers. I don't know what this child's come into my life, and I have the means and the willingness to love and care and support, but I don't know where to begin. And when you reach into DCP, I guess, in support workers, how are they possibly supposed to understand that?
Yep.
Understand where to begin? And I think, that is a failure for, I guess, the the child first and mostly importantly, the child, but also the person or the carer who's trying to do the most for that child immediately, quickly.
And I guess for some people that don't live in this space, they may think that it's just the support the carer needs to live in the home with the carer. Sorry, the child needs to live in the home with the carer. But actually, it's not just within that carer's home, because it extends out into the community. And for that child, because when they go to school, they also need those modifications in the school schoolyard, the classroom, the bathroom. There may be other places that these children have to go or frequent. We need to make sure that all of that safety equipment is in place anywhere that child is going to be spending time. So it's not just even the carer's home, the carer's car. It's making sure that these children are safe regardless of where they go. And also that because a lot of these children also end up spending a lot of time at home. That means then that they're removed from society. They don't get the same social opportunities as other children. I mean, they already can't participate in most things other children participate in, but they can't even experience that social, I guess, surroundings and to get out of the house if they don't have the adequate equipment. I often talk about, we go into meetings and we talk about the United Nations and the rights of the child. And when you start weighing the list of rights that children are supposed to be entitled to, and you start having a look at what all of our children are being denied, I'd say there's some pretty clear breaches going on there, and that somebody needs to start doing some swift work to sort this system out so that we're actually meeting the needs of our children and also meeting the rights of these children.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Great points, Lisa.
Yeah.
You bring to the table some excellent topics and conversations, through your lived experience, and obviously too through, your advocacy, and conversations that you're having in a timely way and immediately with other carers. I hear a lot of positive things about what it is you're doing. I'm glad to be here on the podcast as well, and being given the opportunity to talk about NDIS and little people and other carers that sometimes are come to me and express the same grievances and needs that we identify, but yet don't have the time or the means or the ability to come forward and speak about that. Yeah.
Well said, Leah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. So the report has actually gone up on the Carer Project page. So if there are any foster, kinship, grandparent, specific child only carers, other person guardianship, long-term guardianship carers, they can actually reach out and join the Carer Project page, which means that next time perhaps a poll might go up. They can participate in the poll. We also share any opportunities that arise from perhaps the NGOs or DCP or anywhere else where they can provide feedback and try to be part of consultation. We will try to get a link up when we post the podcast somewhere online. So we'll try and get the report on there, and we'll also put some links in regards to the NDIS changes and services as well. And we could probably talk about this stuff all night.
Yeah,
but absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely could. Yeah, absolutely.
But but for now, I think hopefully that gives the community a little bit of insight into the struggles for particularly foster and kinship carers and children in out-of-home care, and NDIS and the current changes and the need for reform.
Yeah, and I just want to say too, Lisa, that I'm not an NDIS expert. I, may have got some parts of this wrong or right or whatever, but I'm just speaking through my own lived experiences and, conversations that I'm having with other carers. I'd love to be corrected. I love someone to say, let me help you in navigating that a little further, or perhaps you've kind of not quite got a full grasp on that. I'm a foster carer. I'm navigating NDIS. There's a lot of complexities to it, and it's forever shifting and changing the NDIS.
And your parenting children with complex needs.
Yeah.
We would all welcome somebody out there, should they watch this and be more of an expert in NDIS, willing to make contact with us and catch up with a group of carers and share some information that we can all then on-share. And like, anybody is welcome to make contact with any of us. If they're
absolutely, I welcome it with open arms, because just when you think that you have a grasp on it, something updates, something changes, and then you're having to learn something all over again and treading water. Yeah. So, but once again, Lisa, thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for always not being, always being child focused, and more importantly, never changing.
Maybe I'll just put a quick plug out there for people to look up my advocate page on Facebook and check it out, and also have a look at the plunge that I'm about to do, the plunge, abseiling down the Intercontinental Hotel in the city, about 70 meters down. Yeah, you have to talk, Kelly, so that they can see it.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh no, now I'm lost in my background.
But if they look up Lisa O'Malley, advocate, foster care, my Facebook page should come up. If not, you'll find my private one. And but check out that page, and it'll be all the information on there, raising money for puddle jumpers, who also provide an astounding variety of services to the community, and especially vulnerable children and families. So there will be a few of us abseiling down that building. And
in how long, Lisa? 24 sleeps, isn't it, Lisa?
Yes,
24
like
sleeps.
Yeah, it is 24 sleeps.
I'm trying not to turn the pages in the diary too quickly.
No, good on you, Lisa. Good on you, Lisa.
Yeah, well done, Lisa.
Yeah.
All righty, thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.